Jasmine Crockett had just spoken 4 words that made Joel Osteen's face turn white as a ghost. 4 simple words that would expose a secret so explosive that 3 of his own lawyers immediately jumped to their feet demanding a recess. But what happened next left everyone in that congressional chamber completely and utterly speechless. Joel Osteen had walked into this hearing with absolute confidence. His legal team had assured him this was nothing more than routine questioning about religious tax exemptions. He had prepared polished answers for every possible scenario. He had that famous smile ready for the cameras. He believed he would charm the committee, answer a few questions, and return to his Houston mansion before dinner. But there was something Joel didn't know. Something that would shatter everything he had built over 3 decades. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had obtained documents that were never supposed to see the light of day. Internal church records that Lakewood had spent millions in legal fees to keep sealed. Financial statements that revealed exactly where every donated dollar actually went. And she had been waiting 3 years for this exact moment to finally reveal them publicly. What were those 4 words that made the most composed televangelist in America physically grip the table for support? What was hiding in those church records that caused Joel's lead attorney to desperately demand an immediate recess? Why did this single confrontation trigger an investigation that is still making headlines today? And what was the one number buried in those documents that Joel knew would destroy him the moment it was read aloud? This is the story of the day a congresswoman from Texas walked into a hearing room with nothing but a folder of leaked documents and walked out having exposed what prosperity gospel leaders have been hiding for decades. But to understand why Joel collapsed that day, you first need to know about the phone call Jasmine received 3 weeks earlier. A phone call from a dying woman that changed everything. 3 weeks before the hearing, Jasmine Crockett was working late in her Dallas office when her personal phone rang unexpectedly. The voice on the other end was weak, barely above a whisper. The woman's name was Dorothy Mae Johnson, 81 years old, calling from a hospice bed in Houston. Dorothy had been a faithful Lakewood church member for 23 years. She had given everything she had to the ministry. Every Social Security check. Her late husband's entire pension. The money from selling their family home. In total, over $196,000 donated across 2 decades because she believed the prosperity message that faithful giving would unlock God's abundant blessings. Now Dorothy was dying of kidney failure. She couldn't afford dialysis treatments. Her children had begged her for years to stop giving money she didn't have, but Dorothy believed with all her heart. She trusted her pastor completely. She thought if she just gave a little more, showed a little more faith, the breakthrough would finally come. It never came. As Jasmine listened to Dorothy's frail voice describe watching Joel preach about God's abundance from her hospital bed while she rationed her medication, something broke inside the congresswoman. She made Dorothy a solemn promise that night. She would get answers. What Dorothy didn't know was that her phone call set something in motion that even Jasmine couldn't have predicted. 2 weeks later, an unmarked envelope arrived at Jasmine's congressional office. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note with 3 sentences. I worked in Lakewood's finance department for 11 years. I cannot stay silent anymore. The truth is on this drive. What Jasmine found kept her awake for 3 straight nights. 7 years of internal financial records. Salary figures that contradicted every public statement Joel had ever made. Real estate holdings hidden behind shell companies. And most devastating, a detailed breakdown showing exactly what percentage of donations actually helped people in genuine need. The numbers were absolutely damning. Jasmine knew the moment she revealed them publicly, there would be no going back. She called Dorothy one final time before the hearing. The elderly woman was weaker now, barely conscious. But she managed to whisper 5 words that Jasmine would carry into that chamber. Tell the truth for me. 2 days later, Dorothy Mae Johnson passed away peacefully. She never saw what happened next. If this story is already making you think twice about where donated money actually goes, hit that subscribe button now. Because what Jasmine revealed in that hearing room will shock you to your absolute core. The morning of the hearing, Joel Osteen arrived at the congressional building surrounded by his complete legal team. 4 attorneys in expensive tailored suits, a public relations manager, and 2 assistants carrying binders full of prepared statements. He waved confidently at cameras with that signature smile, looking every bit like a man who had already won. Inside the chamber, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly reviewing her notes one final time. The folder containing Lakewood's leaked financial records rested beneath her steady hands. She had barely slept in days. Dorothy's funeral had been yesterday. Jasmine had attended, sitting in the back row, watching Dorothy's children weep over a woman who died with nothing because she gave everything to a ministry that promised blessings that never came. Joel took his seat with practiced confidence. His opening statement was smooth, polished, exactly what his team had prepared. He spoke about Lakewood's community outreach, their hurricane relief efforts, the millions of lives touched by his ministry's message of hope. He made no mention of specific finances. He answered every early question with vague assurances that everything was handled according to proper guidelines. Then it was Jasmine's turn. She began calmly, almost too calmly. Her voice was steady as she thanked Joel for appearing. She asked simple questions at first. How many members does Lakewood currently have? Approximately how much does the church receive in weekly donations? What is his official role in financial decisions? Joel answered each question with rehearsed ease, deflecting specifics while maintaining his warm demeanor. His attorneys relaxed slightly. This was going exactly as planned. Then Jasmine's tone shifted noticeably. Pastor Osteen, I want to ask you about charitable giving. Specifically, what percentage of Lakewood's annual donations goes directly to helping those in need? The homeless, the hungry, the sick who cannot afford medical care. Joel's smile remained, but his eyes flickered with something new. Caution. We do tremendous charitable work, Congresswoman. Our church has always been committed to serving the community. That's not what I asked. Jasmine's voice cut through the chamber like steel. I asked for a percentage. A number. What percentage of donated funds goes to direct charitable work? Silence hung in the air. Joel glanced at his lead attorney, who subtly shook his head in warning. I don't have those specific figures memorized, but I can assure you our giving is substantial and well documented. Jasmine nodded slowly, her hand moving deliberately toward the folder. Well, Pastor Osteen, I have those figures right here. And I think you should know that what these documents reveal is very different from what you have been telling your congregation for years. Joel's smile vanished. His hands moved to the edge of the table. The air in the chamber seemed to change entirely, because what Jasmine was about to read from those documents would alter the course of American religious history forever. Jasmine Crockett opened the folder with deliberate slowness. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on her. Joel Osteen sat rigid, his knuckles turning white against the table. Pastor Osteen, according to these internal financial records from Lakewood Church, your ministry received $147 million in total donations last fiscal year. She looked up directly at him. Does that number sound accurate? Joel's voice was tight. I would need to verify that with our finance team. Jasmine continued without hesitation. These records also show that of that $147 million, the amount allocated to direct charitable assistance, meaning help for the poor, the homeless, medical aid for those who cannot afford it, totaled $1.83 million. She paused deliberately. That is 1.24%. Less than 1.25% of every dollar donated went to actually helping people in need. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Joel's lead attorney stood immediately. Congresswoman, we object to the use of documents that may have been obtained through improper channels. The documents were provided by a whistleblower and are now part of congressional record. Jasmine's voice never wavered. Pastor Osteen, can you explain where the remaining $145 million went? Joel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The cameras captured every micro-expression. Operating costs. Staff salaries. Our television ministry reaches millions around the world. Maintaining a facility of our size requires significant resources. Let's talk about salaries. Jasmine pulled out another page. According to these records, your personal compensation package from Lakewood Church, including salary, housing allowances, vehicle allowances, and expense accounts, totals $4.7 million annually. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Someone in the gallery whispered audibly, "Oh my God." Joel's attorney was on his feet again. This is privileged information. Pastor Osteen. Jasmine spoke directly to Joel, ignoring the attorney completely. You publicly claim you don't take a salary from the church. You've said this in multiple interviews. Yet these documents show $4.7 million in annual compensation. Can you explain this discrepancy? Joel's composure was cracking visibly. Those figures are being taken out of context. Ministerial compensation is complex. Let me simplify it. Jasmine pulled out a photograph and held it up for everyone to see. The chamber fell completely silent. This is Dorothy Mae Johnson. She was 81 years old, a member of your church for 23 years. She gave $196,000 to Lakewood. Every dollar she had. She died last week because she couldn't afford dialysis. Jasmine's voice trembled with emotion. Dorothy believed your message, Pastor Osteen. She believed that if she gave faithfully, God would provide. Instead, her money went toward your $4.7 million salary while she died rationing her medication. She held the photograph higher. So I'm asking you directly, looking at this woman who gave everything to your ministry, a woman who died with nothing because she believed your promises. Do you believe Dorothy Mae Johnson received the blessings you guaranteed her? The silence was devastating. Joel stared at the photograph. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Jasmine delivered the final blow with devastating precision. Pastor Osteen, these records show that while Dorothy was selling her family home just a tithe, your church purchased a $12.1 million luxury property through a shell company called Graceway Holdings. A property currently used as a private residence by members of your immediate family. I need you to answer this directly. Did Dorothy Mae Johnson's sacrificial donations help pay for that $12.1 million house while she died in a hospice bed, unable to afford the dialysis that could have saved her life? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to fall. If this confrontation is revealing something you have never heard before, make sure you are subscribed right now. Because what happens in the next 60 seconds is something absolutely no one in that room saw coming. Joel Osteen's response to this question would become the most replayed moment in congressional history. The chamber had gone completely still. Not a single person moved or made a sound. Every camera was locked on Joel Osteen's face as Jasmine Crockett's devastating question hung in the air like a verdict waiting to be delivered. Joel's attorney frantically whispered in his ear, but Joel seemed completely unable to hear him. His eyes were fixed on the photograph of Dorothy Mae Johnson, the woman whose faith in his message had cost her everything. Pastor Osteen. Jasmine's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. I'm asking you directly. Did this woman's donations help purchase a $12.1 million property for your family while she died unable to afford her own medical care? Joel opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. 5 seconds passed. The silence was suffocating. 10 seconds. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, but Joel didn't respond. 15 seconds. The color had completely drained from his face. 20 seconds. His breathing became visibly shallow. 25 seconds. His grip on the table tightened desperately, as if it was the only thing keeping him upright. Then it happened. At exactly 31 seconds of devastating silence, Joel Osteen's eyes lost focus. His body swayed slightly. His grip on the table failed. And in front of every camera in that chamber, America's most famous prosperity preacher slumped forward, catching himself at the last moment before his head struck the table. Chaos erupted immediately. His attorneys rushed to support him. Someone called for medical personnel. The committee chairman banged his gavel calling for order. Through it all, the cameras never stopped recording for a single moment. Joel was helped to sit upright, his face ashen, his hands shaking uncontrollably. A glass of water was brought immediately. Medical staff checked his vitals. The hearing was suspended for 30 minutes while he received attention. When proceedings resumed, Joel returned looking like a shadow of the confident man who had walked in hours earlier. His signature smile was gone. His confidence had evaporated completely. His attorneys had clearly advised him to say nothing further. But Jasmine had one final moment. Pastor Osteen, before we conclude, I want to give you an opportunity. Millions of people like Dorothy have given sacrificially to your ministry based on your teachings. Many are watching right now. Is there anything you want to say to them? The chamber fell silent one last time. Joel Osteen, the man who had built an empire on words, who had written best-selling books about the power of positive declarations, who had preached to millions about speaking blessings into existence, looked into the camera with hollow, empty eyes. His voice came out barely a whisper, cracking on every word. I'm sorry. I never wanted anyone to be hurt. 9 words. That was all. 9 words that would echo across every news network, every social media platform, every church in America for months to come. The man who always had the perfect thing to say had finally run out of words. The video of Joel Osteen's collapse spread across the internet like wildfire. Within 3 hours, the clip had been viewed over 50 million times. By the next morning, that number had crossed 300 million views. The hashtag Osteen collapse trended worldwide for 6 consecutive days. News networks played the footage on continuous loops. Religious commentators debated its meaning endlessly. Some defended Joel as a victim of political targeting. Others called it the long-overdue unmasking of prosperity gospel exploitation. But one thing was undeniable. The image of Joel slumping forward at that table had become the defining visual of a movement in serious crisis. The immediate fallout at Lakewood was devastating. The Sunday following the hearing, attendance dropped by 45%. Donation boxes that typically overflowed sat nearly empty. Joel did not appear to preach. Victoria Osteen delivered a brief message asking for prayers during what she called a season of spiritual warfare. Within 2 weeks, the IRS announced a formal review of Lakewood's tax-exempt status based on the financial discrepancies revealed during testimony. 3 major accounting firms quietly severed their relationships with the church. Joel's upcoming book release was indefinitely postponed by his publisher. But the most damaging blow came from inside Lakewood itself. A month after the hearing, audio from an emergency board meeting was leaked to the press. In the recording, Joel could be heard saying, "I keep seeing her face. That woman, Dorothy. She gave us everything, and we let her die with nothing. How do I preach on Sunday knowing that?" A board member responded nervously, "Joel, if we change course now, we're admitting everything Crockett said was true. The legal exposure alone." Joel's voice cut him off, broken and raw. "I don't know if I care anymore. Maybe she was right. Maybe we lost sight of what this was supposed to be." The recording confirmed what millions had long suspected. The prosperity gospel's most famous voice was now questioning everything he had built. If this story is changing how you think about where your donations go, hit subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. 1 year after the hearing, American Christianity had shifted permanently. Lakewood Church reported a 60% decline in weekly donations. Joel Osteen stepped back from regular preaching, citing health and personal reflection. His television program, once broadcast in over 100 countries, was quietly reduced to a fraction of its former reach. The IRS investigation resulted in Lakewood being required to file public financial disclosures for the first time in its history. Several other megachurches voluntarily increased their transparency to avoid similar scrutiny. Jasmine Crockett introduced legislation called the Dorothy Mae Johnson Religious Transparency Act, requiring large religious organizations to publicly disclose basic financial information to donors. While the bill remains in committee, it has sparked a national conversation that shows no signs of fading anytime soon. Dorothy's children received an anonymous donation that completely covered their mother's remaining medical debts and funeral expenses. They never discovered who sent it. The question Jasmine asked that day still echoes through churches across the nation. When you give your hard-earned money to a ministry, where does it actually go? Does it feed the hungry and heal the sick? Or does it fund lifestyles that Jesus himself would never recognize? That important question is not an attack on faith. It is a call to protect it. If this story moved you, subscribe and leave a comment below. Should churches be required to show donors exactly where their money goes? Remember, the most faithful thing we can do is demand that those who speak in his name actually live by his words.